Dana, thank you for joining me in my favorite beautiful park in the middle of Shanghai, which is just full of parks. I come from Los Angeles, the least number of parks of any major city in the world.
Oh.
I mean, we have a beach and we have mountains, but yeah, they decided they didn't need parks. So when I come here, I spend a lot of time in the parks. What's your relationship to the parks in China? And just the greenery. I have to say, I think there must be 20 million gardeners in China.
Definitely a refreshing experience. To juxtapose it from my experience with the parks in Detroit, tragically the parks in my neighborhood were run down, kind of overrun with drug activity. I got flashbacks of my sister, like as a teenager, like coming to visit me and fighting in the park, fighting the local kids. I'll never forget that. Total opposite here. The parks are spectacular. They're massive, labyrinth-like parks, and they're everywhere. Just everywhere you turn, there's a park. So it's beautiful. It's a great place to just kind of decompress and relax and be human. And they're completely safe. So that's my experience with parks.
What's fun for me too is when I walk through this park, something different's happening every day and every hour. It could be dancing or Tai Chi or moms and dads talking about, marrying their daughters and sons to each other or playing games, sharing birds in cages. I mean, it's always a magical community experience.
Absolutely. I just remember you just go on like an adventure, strolling and walking, and there's different corners and pockets, and you'll see different communities doing their thing, finding their section, practicing Tai Chi, like you said, or dancing. People practicing English. Sometimes they have like English corners in the park where English teachers can come out and just randomly meet people and chat with them. And I remember when I first came, like I always had this, I guess it's one of the things that I learned about China that was true. I had this vision of parks, and I always envisioned myself just like meeting some random stranger in the park and just having a conversation and learning like the wisdom of the Chinese people. So that was always one of my goals, and I can say it's come true. I've had some amazing conversations just chatting with folks in the park.
You can just walk up to somebody and start a conversation?
Yeah, totally. People are so chill and nice. And it's always just a wonderful vibe. And again, they're just so spectacular, and there's so many of them. How they find a way to pack them all throughout the city. Every community is going to have like 2 or 3, and just a blessing. The community where I live in, it's engulfed in a park. It's almost like Central Park, and so in Central Park in New York, you have all of the apartments around the park, the residential apartments. Our community in 1,000 Trees, the apartments are right in the middle of the park. So I walk out of my door, it looks just like this.
Whoa.
Immediately out of my complex. Basketball court here, trees, it's just fantastic. Waterways, little waterfalls and ponds.
Oh.
So China really has that down pat. Just integrating people into a peaceful environment.
Well, let's talk about basketball. Basketball court in the park.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Is there a lot of basketball played?
Out of control. There's more basketball enthusiasts in China now than the United States, more basketball parks than in the United States. The viewership for the NBA is larger in China than the United States. And I saw that and actually was a part of it. I got in working with Nike and the NBA early on. One of my closest friends, peers, he ended up being the marketing director for NBA basketball at the time. When Kobe and LeBron and Durant would come out, he would take them all around. And he also moved on to the NBA, was head of marketing for NBA. So in my agency time, we did a lot of work with Nike and the basketball players. One of the first campaigns that I worked on was called Hip Hoop, and that came out around 2000. It got a lot of awards. It was started in Taiwan. They started this mixing hip hop with basketball, and then we did the activation in Shanghai, and that's where I got to meet Yao Ming. I can name drop some folks like Terry Rhodes, who was a marketing guy at Nike, who ended up being the first agent for Yao Ming. those are all my circle and peers. And basketball has just blossomed and grown. You were just showing me earlier the video of Wimbyamba here in China, and what a remarkable human being. And he's having an incredible experience actually learning Shaolin martial arts. And it made me reflect on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and his experience with Bruce Lee in the film Game of Death. It's like history is repeating itself. This 7'4" guy with, like, I don't know, a 5'6", 5'5" Chinese monk, and they're learning martial arts together. So basketball is beloved in China. It's probably, it may be more popular than soccer, than football in China now. It could be the most popular sport. Don't quote me.
So, I mean, you're talking about these culture bridges that both you and I are interested in, the culture bridges that remind us that we're in solidarity and not enemies. Your life is a bridge with the hip hop and the music. Can you talk about that? You know, what that was like coming 25 years ago and bringing music that wasn't indigenous to China?
Yeah, the amazing thing about China is there's lovers of everything. You can find a niche community that love all different kind of genres, and because it's such a large population, their communities are huge, they're massive. So coming from Detroit, knowing we had a really unique hip hop culture in the city, but hip hop was very niche in Detroit, which is a small city in and of itself. I could remember, trying to find a hip hop party in Detroit in the early 2000s, asking my homeboy, let's go to the hip hop jam. And there actually wasn't even a hip hop party in the city. We had to go to the suburbs on a Wednesday night, on an off night, to go. I think it was in like, where was it at? The Farmington. Somewhere off in Farmington to go to this Detroit hip hop night. And in China, in Shanghai, city of 26 million, hip hop being small and niche, we were able to build a community in a short amount of time. Every Wednesday night, actually, 700 people will come out, 800 people will come out. And it really struck me that we actually had a bigger scene in Shanghai than my hometown of Detroit. And I was able to tap into, just at the right time, a burgeoning scene in a community of enthusiasts that has just been so inspiring and life inspiring and uplifting, because they were really eager and genuine to learn about this culture. They appreciated and valued me, and they gave me a window into their world and how they saw reality and the bonds that have formed over these 25 plus years through hip hop. They've transcended all dimensions of life, like people from all different walks of life, every class level you can think of, from the poor, working class, to the elites of the society. These people that love hip hop. And just last night I was hanging out with a guy. He's a lawyer. He's at the biggest law firm in China, and he was a huge fan of the Iron Mike growing up. And he was saying, like we were just talking last night, and he said, I can't believe it. I'm walking around with Showtime as a kid when I was a graffiti artist, and my friends, we all looked up to you and inspired you for the things that you did, like forging this culture and community. And now we're talking about doing completely different things. He's going to take the bar exam in California in a couple of weeks, and we're talking about international trade and solar energy, all through hip hop. So don't underestimate the power of art and art communities to build bridges, to make connections.
Yeah, the power of cultures. And those are two cultures that, can find each other, appreciate each other. So you talked about when you first came. Can we talk a little bit about that? You say you learned something from them. What preconceived ideas did you come with, and what have you learned?
Wow, that is so much. That's a lot to kind of process. It's a continuous process. I'm always learning. The complexity and diversity of China. The concept of harmony and how that diversity is balanced and why people appreciate it. the deep, rich history of a recent history of tremendous conflict and loss. So you have a nation that really since the 1850s, 1840s, right when the United States is going through its civil war, where our largest loss of life in war, civil war, 4 million, 5 million people. China was going through its own civil unrest with the Taiping Rebellion, which lasted, from the 40s to the 70s, 1840s, 1870s. They lost 40 million people. Unbelievable loss and upheaval. And then to go through a century of humiliation, being colonized and dominated, and their country, balkanized, and having civil war for such a long time, to finally come up out of that in 1949 and establish peace. And for people that are still alive today to know what civil war looks like and civil strife looks like, and why they really cherish harmony and peace, and to realize that many of the talking points that the China haters or the China hawks like to use against China is actually China's strength. They really want to project the idea of Han, ethnic superiority, and racism, when in reality, this is something that is illegal in the Constitution. It's acknowledged in the Constitution that these kind of ethnic tensions and ethnic strife will not be tolerated. You can't exploit these divisions. And there's so many programs and so much effort into maintaining peace and harmony amongst his people, and that the diversity is cherished. And that is something that's one of the key takeaways I've learned.
I mean, this is a different China we're sitting in right in this moment. So you came here when it was still like it's still a developing country, but it was like a really struggling country still. And there were still a lot of people in poverty.
That's right.
I mean, it's only recently the last 100 million have been taken out.
Mm.
So how does that happen?
That has been an exhilarating ride. To be honest, that economic expansion, that economic miracle that has never been duplicated in human history, the rise of China, lifting 700 million people out of poverty, it's kind of like gaining weight. You don't really realize it. You don't notice it while you're living here. And so while I'm enjoying the prosperity, while I'm part of it, and I'm seeing the changes, I didn't know it had grown that fast. I was actually oblivious to just how remarkable the change was, and a lot of things I didn't notice. Seeing the second and third tier cities, having the opportunity to travel to those in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and now go back to them, that has been because it's been so long. I was truly shocked by how much they developed. I have the photographs. I know what it was like on the streets, what the cities look like. The grit, the grime, the soot, the bad air pollution. And now these cities, their skylines rival Shanghai's. And that has been truly impressive. And I look forward to going back to a lot of these places. I've been to 60 cities. That's a lot of cities.
Whoa.
60, that's more than we have states in the US. 60 cities continuously going like all the time, and getting really intimately familiar with these cities. And so it's home. So I look forward to going back and seeing the progress. But it's a testament to good governance. I know what good governance is. I know what corruption looks like by looking at what's happening in American cities, because you can see over the same time period, you don't see the level of development and growth. So you know that there's some corruption going on. People are much more frugal. The public goods and public resources that benefit everyone are not made for profit. So a lot of the transportation systems, highways, subways, they're running at a loss. They're getting subsidized, in part by the central government. And this is for the benefit of the people. But it's working. It's stimulating the economy. It's moving, it's getting people moving back and forth. We see how that stimulates the economy when people have easy, quick, high-speed access to another city. You have a lot of talent and resources. You're on the other side of the country. I have a friend, an American. He was living in Shenzhen. He got a job in Hangzhou, part-time job in Hangzhou, was doing well. Back in the days, when I came as a teacher, actually, as an English teacher, to show you, I was only working 3 days a week, but it was able to pay my rent, pay my housing 3 days a week, and I was able to use that time to explore and travel and kind of moonlight and develop a hip hop scene. Well, this brother, he's like, well, I'm gonna work 3 days, but I need to make this money, so I'm gonna go back to Shenzhen. He was literally commuting back and forth between Shenzhen and Hangzhou every week. Every weekend, he'd go back to Shenzhen and work on the weekends and then come back and work during the week in Hangzhou. And he's on the train, it's only a couple hours. So he's not missing a beat, actually. It was like the commute that I used to take from my high school, Shanghai Zhongshui, in the suburbs of Shanghai. I would have to get on a motorcycle, hop on a motorcycle, take the motorcycle to the one subway line. That took about 15, 20 minutes. Get on that one subway line, and that would take 2 hours to get to the heart of the city. It's like he does that same distance, and he's going from like California to New York. And he's able to benefit from both of those economies. And this is what the local people are doing in China. So this is what helps stimulate it. Those kind of things are just, I used to also, what I would hear about even recently, oh, the high-speed rail and the infrastructure. I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, so what? Like, what's the big deal? Like, cool, you got subways, but it really clicked to see how it stimulates the economy and makes life easier and better, and makes things more affordable for the whole nation. And now China has the most high-speed rail in the world, and Shanghai has the longest subway system in the world, and we're moving at light speed.
Well, you've been in subways in the U.S. and you've been in subways in China. Like, what's that?
Yeah, yep. There's a lot of videos on it. It's pretty depressing. It's madness. I went, like in 2019 when I was back, and I was bringing a group of hip hop artists from China for their first time to the United States. And we went to Detroit, LA, and San Francisco. It was my first time in San Francisco. And I went on the subway system, and it was, you know what? Actually, we opted not to take the subway because we went on the subway system, and immediately it was a bad experience. I was actually afraid. I was nervous. I was like, security, like what's going on here? There are people on drugs, in really bad states, stumbling up and down the stairs. It was pretty frightening. And then we walk out the subway right to like the heart of downtown, and I saw with my own eyes like an assault take place, but almost a murder. A man in the middle of the street screaming and yelling at someone. Looks like he has a weapon, a knife in his coat jacket, trench coat. He's running around the streets, chasing people, kicking over carts. And then I heard that like this is like the most dangerous part of the city to go to, but it's the heart of the city. It's the government municipal offices. So we've got a lot of trauma and poverty, homelessness, mental illness that's not being addressed with our city and our states. And this is something that in a nation of, where we at 1.3, 1.4 billion, it's almost non-existent across the entire country, that disciplined and organized that they're not gonna allow this to happen in their cities. So.
Well, what did the young people think that you took? Like, what was their experience?
It was a mixed bag. So they were different age groups. There was a young woman in her early 20s who was an ethnic minority, what Americans would know as Hmong group. They're in Vietnam and Southeast Asia and Southwest China. And she belonged to that, ethnic group. She had a great experience. I was a little disappointed and sad, but I understand her reaction. When she arrived back in China, the first thing she did was kiss the ground. and put a post. It's like, thank God I'm back in China. They have a serious drug problem. that was her first reaction. Like, I'm happy to be back home. And this was a young girl, like she was like, I helped her through, get her visa process. And, I had to be a chaperone for her, for her parents. So I remember that whole experience of how I even filmed it, how happy and excited she was to get the visa to go to America. And we called her mom, let her know. It was a great experience, but yeah, she got to see the reality. I have another friend, older, gentleman, he's in his mid 40s. He was actually born in Australia, grew up in Taiwan. So he's a little, he's traveled abroad a little bit more. He came to Detroit, he loved it. He loved Detroit because he saw the opportunity. He wanted to buy real estate there. He really wanted to come back and connect. He had a good time. He liked LA. But the first thing is, yeah, most people are startled by the homelessness and the crime and the poverty. It just jumps out at you.
Well, when you left Detroit, what did you leave?
Where did I leave when I left Detroit? In 1999, yeah, we were on the verge of bankruptcy. We were coming out of a recession. That year, we had just come out of a nationwide recession, and Detroit was on the verge of bankruptcy. And this was the beginning of the mass exodus and decline of population in Detroit. So I left at the right time. So many people left. They didn't all move to China, but they moved to other parts of the United States, went down south. Basically a depopulation of the city. And only recently, past 5 to 8 years, we're starting to see a revival in downtown Detroit. And it's slowly starting to have some impact on the city, but it's primarily downtown Detroit. We got a long way to go for reviving the city. The population decline is mind-blowing. To be actually one of the largest cities spatially. I didn't even know that just how large Detroit is. I heard you can fit Boston, San Francisco, and Manhattan all in Detroit. That's how large it is spatially. And we used to have nearly 2 million people. The metro area had like 3 to 4 million people. I think the greater metropolitan area is still a lot of people, several million. But Detroit, it shrunk from just over 1 million, to almost 500,000. So it halved. That is something that you don't see in cities, ransacked by war. The Mongols could come through, and you're gonna have, half your population still left. So it was total devastation. So yeah, polar opposites, my experience, leaving Detroit and then coming to China, just moving in 2 completely different directions.
So you mentioned that you had been to 60 cities in China. First of all, I'm jealous. Every time I go to a city, I feel like I'm in another universe, which is so strange because also another universe, but the depth of history. And I'm just curious if you experience that depth of history when you're here.
Just an interesting caveat, like what really got me moving around. I was doing shows and entertainment, so I would get booked to do perform in different cities, but I really started to travel a lot when I was doing commercial events. So we were doing tours, and the tours were so frequent that I would every weekend be in a different city. And I would every weekend, it got to the point where we were doing three cities in every weekend. So I would have 3 teams in 3 different cities that I would prep for. And I was really excited for the opportunity to travel and get to know China. And some of my colleagues, they really shocked me, like some of the attitudes of Western colleagues, like they got bored really quick. Their attitude was, every city looks the same and it's the same thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like every city is completely different. The history is so diverse and distinct. And so I was big on that. And back in those days, my guy was Lonely Planet. So I was a Lonely Planet guy. I would have the Lonely Planet, and it would have the map of the whole city, and it have some historical background. And before I would go to every city, I would do all the research. And I was really fortunate because, we had nice budgets that would cover all of your expenses for like travel, and I got like, all expense paid for tour of the city. So part of my job for, booking the hotels for the artists is finding the best hotel where they feel comfortable and that's closer to the venues. So I had a carte blanche freedom to get in a taxi and drive over the whole city and see it. And so that's what I would do for every city. I would get the whole tour, visit the whole town, and then I had a lot of free time to explore and network and meet people. And so I really got a chance to immerse myself in the culture. And then the artists that I brought, they were also very eager. So we would have our ritual, we would do our performances, and then the next day we would all go out for lunch and tourism together and meet with local people. So I got a beautiful experience to actually figure out the nuance and the distinction and differences of every city, what they have to offer, the local dialect, the food, the history, the slang, the trends, the different perspectives, the political perspectives, perspectives on life. Everything is shaped by your environment and your historical experience. And so people in the South live in a more leisurely, laid-back life. They get up and go to work at like 11. They have lunch, they have a nap break at 2 p.m. or something. They work to 7 p.m. That culture is non-existent in East China. If you go to Southern China, it's a whole different world. People, in certain places, more than others, they like to, the men, all of them take their shirt off when they're having food outside publicly. Take your shirt off, we're eating together, half naked. Shanghai, you're not going to really see that. It's more of a Beifan, Northern China thing. So, I need to write a book or make a little movie or something about all the adventures.
Well, and also the food. Every time I talk to somebody from another state or province, they're like, we have the best food. We're from a city, we have the best food. The food, competition here is crazy. The other thing that's just so amazing is how much Chinese love to eat.
Eat and talk and socialize.
Yeah, that's it. Dinners take 4 hours and it's tons of food and everybody is loving every bite.
It's a religious institution.
Yeah.
It truly is. It's what brings everyone together. It's like the joy to treat your loved ones to a meal and to get everyone together and have these community meals. And again, the different cultures. Maybe in Shanghai, you got the lazy Susan, so you got a big glass spinning table where you put everything and spin it. But if you're in West China, Yunnan, they got a big mat. And they put all the food on the mat. And you kind of reach across and grab it. But yeah, that is also, that's where you make the bond. If you're not eating with people and part of these community dinners, then you're missing China. You don't understand the real China. If you haven't been invited to someone's home, you're not there yet. You need to be in a lot of homes all the time for the holidays. People should be begging you and dragging you to come over. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. You're not ordering a dish to yourself in China and you have your own little plate and you're ordering collectively and you're sharing in the experience. Learning how to serve food to others and be a good host, take care, make sure, okay, did you get some of this, and putting it on their plate and feeding them.
And using the two different chopsticks, the one to eat with and the one to serve with.
Right, the communal chopstick and your own personal chopstick. And that kind of etiquette, that kind of really subtle, gentle care, how people show affection. You put a piece of food on someone's plate, it's like the most touching moment, and that's how you make bonds with people. So, yeah, all kind of flashbacks you're giving me of these moments. That's how you build trust and respect and community through these really, really simple, small acts.
Cool. So one of the things that happens when you try to bring someone from the community here to speak, people won't trust it because they feel like they live under an authoritarian government and they're not allowed to tell the truth.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. People, human beings in general, are freedom-loving, fearless, warrior creatures. And to think that any government would have the ability to silence this many people, and that they wouldn't. You constantly see the history of China is the history of people rising up against injustice. If you know anything about this culture, anything about these people, the civil rights movement came from China. People don't even know that. We attribute it to India. We attribute it to Gandhi. Do you know Gandhi was studying China? That he was looking into the 1919 protests and the boycotts? Like, the word boycott is an English name. It comes from the guy that did it. But the people that perfected economic boycotts were the Chinese. And they were fighting against imperialism. They were fighting against the colonial powers that colonized their country, took over chunks of their country, dominated the economy, and they said, we're not buying any more Western goods. We're going to boycott, a mass boycott, non-violent protests. The people protest all the time. I've been part of protests in China. They happen. I've filmed them. I've been in the middle of them. People are outspoken. They talk about everything. I'm in the hip hop community. There's no topic that you think you're an expert on, you speak on, that people in the hip hop community in China don't talk about, don't make music about, tour about, everything. So it's just another smear, and a ridiculous one at that, to think that you can't get people to talk about their gripes and frustrations.
No, when people say to me, Americans don't even know how to complain like a Chinese.
That's right. And then they get some results. They actually get results.
I watch them always yelling at the cops.
Yep.
But so let's talk about that part, because I think people, because they don't know, believe in the authoritarianism. But my experience is everything happens in community. It's like there's the vision that comes from the top, and then the communities figure out how they're going to express that. And we saw in COVID that happened differently, like in every different province and every different city. It was like, we don't want too many deaths, turned into a lot of different processes. So what is it like to live in a community where, people complain and get things done? And, I don't know, for me, the biggest thing is the air. It's like, 16 today, right? It's excellent. That happened because the people complained viciously, right? You were here.
Yep.
So democracy happens. It just happens in a different way, actually, because there are people in power who respond and care. Is that right?
That's how it works. It's a people power. The thing that, they only tell half of the story. Without a question, China as a culture has a greater tolerance for centralized control and centralized authority. And but the flip side of it, the love of freedom. For China, a lot of the traditions, whether it's Taoism and Confucianism, there's this importance of having the balance and keeping the balance, keeping the harmony. And so one side doesn't go too extreme. And so they're really good at that. So whereas the central government is given a lot of authority and power, they have a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of pressure put upon them. We don't talk about the way they get disciplined in China, how government officials, when they get out of line and get caught, how just and swift action takes place. You need to address that. And the air is another one. To this day, there are people that still think in America that the air pollution is worse in China, than wherever, or worse than it was whenever. They still think that we're living in this really toxic, polluted environment. And when I first came in 1999, as a child, I was diagnosed with asthma. Oh. And I grew up never really, thankfully, it got cured, it got dealt with when I was young. And I didn't have to use the pump or whatever. I had a couple incidents. I guess I didn't know what happened. I guess there were asthma attacks. When I came to China, I actually started to have trouble breathing. And pretty bad problem, chest congestion, and I was having asthma attacks. And so they gave me an inhaler. And there was pollution in Shanghai. And the pollution in Beijing was horrible. People used to always have masks, and they would have warnings. They monitored it very well. And as you suggested, something got done. I still don't know to this day what they did. I don't know the science behind it, but they really did clean up the pollution and clean up the air. And you get results. I've seen whether it was the COVID policies going too far, too long, to a point where it was unbearable, where people demanded that it be ended, or even like lesser policies that often also get exploited in the Western media. People don't realize that these policies are rolled out in China on experimental basis, case by case, province by province. They review the results in each province to see best practices in a more efficient system. And the policies that don't work get discarded. And part of the feedback is public response. So I've seen policies all my, the half of my life I've lived in China, I've seen them come and go. I've seen when they had the walls of shame. They talk about the so-called social credit score. These were just mechanisms to address problems that citizens were complaining about, such as spitting on the street, not lining up for the subway train, jaywalking. Real problems that people were not following in line, not enough cops to find everyone. How do we deal with this? And so there are cameras everywhere. The cameras come out. They put up in Shanghai this like digital wall of shame. It wasn't everywhere. It was in certain locations where you could see people caught jaywalking. And the face would be blurred out, whatever, but you could see them like doing jaywalking, getting caught, and then it'll be like, fine, this person caught, whatever. That lasted like 30 days. People are like, that's a little bit too much. We don't need to see all that. So,
It lasted 30 days?
Yeah, maybe it was 30 days. I saw it and then it was gone. Those kiosks, they were not expanded. During COVID, there was a policy about separating children from their families for a specific hospital for children. That lasted 24 hours. The moment it was implemented and people realized it was on the books, it was actual policy, that they said, all right, these kids, we don't want to put the kids in the general population. We want to put them in a COVID hospital where they're safe and looked after. And as soon as that went public, the parents went crazy, and the government came out and issued a statement. We're rolling this back. This one's discarded. This is a no-go, right? It came at a time where, that was so rare that you would get an infectious disease and that you would have to quarantine a kid in a hospital. They didn't think that there would be like 30 kids. So those things do happen. But if you saw the way the Western media spun it, they're separating the kids from the family. Like they made it seem like this is a nationwide policy, and they didn't tell the background story of how quickly it got addressed. So that's usually, you only get half the story. You don't get the full nuance and context because they don't want you to have it. They just want to fearmonger and smear and degrade and dehumanize and vilify and demonize and fill into the whole story. It's the evil demonic, satanic CCP that wants to take over the globe, and it's connected to all some other conspiracies. Stuff that we wouldn't tolerate for other communities, but suddenly you otherize a political party. You don't realize that you're also racializing them. And you mentioned this as well. This just feeds back into the same motifs and tropes that were being used against China before there was a Communist Party in charge. So we know this is much deeper than political. This is racialized, and that we've always had the Fu Manchu or the Yellow Peril, these Chinese people that can't be trusted, that have this superhuman intelligence that makes them sinister. These tropes, these racialized tropes, are still being used to vilify these people.
We know that China's not our enemy.
No, not mine.
How do you see that we can move forward with this? Because you have the capacity to look at this problem from here in China, as an African American raised in Detroit, like one of the great U.S. cities, and you're watching this hate be generated. And what are some ideas you have? I mean, you're deep in culture, and you've used culture has been your calling card here. It's been, you know, what has been your bridge even to be here. What are some what is some Chinese culture that we could consume to help us understand? Because I think sometimes we other because we don't understand, and that I know that being here, you realize, wow, there's a difference. Just the harmony part, you know, but even the to come from a culture of individualism to a culture of community. You know, what are some ways people can?
Yeah, let's talk about solutions. Let's talk
Yeah.
about solutions. How do we fight back, and how do we win this struggle? And this may sound cliche, but love wins in the end. Love will win. Love will bash the brains out of hate, and truth will bash the brains out of falsehood. I believe that communities of love, genuine love that are rooted in trust and cooperation, just like we were talking earlier, peace, love, unity, and what that's right, peace, love, unity, and what that brings. Because we're talking about fighting hate. And one of the ways we fight back, what I'm learning is a lot of people are duped because, and they fall into the trap of the hate. They don't believe or understand the consequences of what they're doing. They don't see the end result. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand, and I've been in the middle of it. I know what it's like to be in an environment where citizens are confused and propaganda is used to make them distrust their government and distrust themselves and the surrounding. And I see the type of violence that can create. Because you go into panic mode, you go into survival mode, and you go into attack mode, like an animal cornered. And that's what you're trying to engender, this kind of environment where you believe someone who's trying to kill you that isn't, that your own family, your own community is trying to harm you when they're not. And so you fight back that by getting the good faith people, the good hearted people, getting them in touch with the human beings that they're demonizing and vilifying them. You have to have those people to people connections, because if you don't, it's very hard to humanize someone from so far away until you have that emotional connection with them. And so when it comes to art and culture, participate, join in and get involved. Instead of, even me, maybe in the past I would champion hip hop among all the other cultures. It's really not about a specific culture. The bottom line is, are you participating? Are you connecting with human beings? Find the things that you enjoy, whether it's food or art or dancing or music. And when you start to make those connections, you build the relationships, and then you get better information, and you're connected on the ground, then you can fight back. And what I'm seeing in real time is some of the diaspora community, who I think sometimes in good faith, they left China at a different period in time. They left in the 80s and early 90s, and at a time where they didn't get to reap the benefits of China now. They don't even know the real China today. They live in America, they have an idealized vision of America, and maybe they did have a better life, and they're happy with that. Yet they're hating on China. But I've found in some of these social audio spaces where I've met these people who bash the CCP, bash China, drape themselves in the American flag, feed into, the propaganda, they're starting to realize that they're going too far, that they've really crossed the line, and they're seeing the hurt and harm that's being inflicted on Chinese students. Like, why do Chinese students need to be demonized? An entire class of people that do you understand the harm you're doing when a student is coming to learn and is a guest in the country, and now they're looked at as a spy and being watched, and they're going to, when at the highest level of government, you're pushing this messaging that the high school students and the college students are going to tease them and harass them and call them names, and our most vulnerable people that are suffering with mental illness are consuming this, and they'll take it to an extreme. They'll go out and attack somebody. They'll believe in the hysteria. So some of these I've witnessed in real time, and even some of the, not even the diaspora community, but actual China haters, if you will, anti-communist or anti-Chinese type folks that have made relationships with Chinese start to pull back. They start to kind of say, well, you know, I don't like this, but we don't have to go this far. One of the things that they say is, you know, we're against the government, not the people. When you hear that, that's a red flag. That's the biggest lie that could ever be told, because all of the policies that they're enacting are always against the people. They always harm the people the worst. They're always policies to stifle economic growth. People saw that with the tariffs. This was where we saw, you know, a very organic relationship taking place between people that were hurt in America by the tariffs. They're seeing people hurt in China so they can make connections with them on a human level. So when you see how people are hurt with the legislation for Uyghurs, the so-called Uyghur Human Rights Act, and then you look underneath the act and realize that you've just sanctioned an entire province
of Uyghurs,
of where Uyghurs live, the entire province. So basically, you are diminishing their ability to grow economically. You're stifling their ability. And this is already a region that has a problem economically. So you're basically stimulating the things that are creating ethnic tensions. You're pouring more fuel onto the fire. You are hypocritically violating your own so-called democratic principles and rules of law, where you say that you're innocent until proven guilty. That you have legislation that says every product that comes out of this province, you have to prove that you're not made with slave labor. You're guilty, immediately guilty, and you have to prove your innocence. Which how are you gonna prove that? It's the most insane legislation. Imagine, again, African American, LAPD, we know there's corruption, we know there's police brutality in the LAPD, we know there's slave labor in the prison system in California. So now we're gonna sanction the entire state of California. Every last business coming out of California, you have to prove your products are not made with slave labor or you're sanctioned. Do you know what you're gonna do to the economy of California? What are you gonna do to those people in the ghetto when their economic situation gets worse? They're gonna get more angry. They're gonna take it out, you know, on the majority group, yeah, on each other. So the policies don't make any sense, and the messaging doesn't make any sense. These are messages of hate, and you fight back by building communities of love, communities that foster trust, communities where you see each other out together, you have each other's back, and you can tell real stories, you can have these conversations. You fight back that way, and support each other when they come for us and they try to demonize people and they put a stamp on Jody Evans and say she's a genocide denier. Like, how vile, how dishonest, and you use these stories to deflect from the crimes that our government are involved in. You conjure up imaginary genocides to cover up a real genocide, one that we can prove. How deceitful, how narcissistic can you get? How criminal. That is the nature of a criminal, to project his crimes onto other people and to laugh in your face and smile when you're the actual criminal committing the crime and you're pointing in the other direction. We need to fight back, be vigilant. And so, yeah, that's why I want to speak out more and be more vocal on the American political landscape. Even though I'm here in China, I need to get out there more. People need to hear my voice and hear the story, because some bad faith actors out there that they need to be addressed. So thank you for giving me a voice and do it in such a remarkable, peaceful place. We can have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you. Let's share some music. Let's share some Iron Mike to our American friends, and let's come up with some ways that we can have conversations across the ocean.
That's right.
Let's do that together.
More forums, guys. Thank you so much.